Okay, one more time. Thank you for tuning in, ladies and gentlemen. We have our esteemed guest this evening, Brother James, Brother Jeff St. James. We had some conversation before, Jeff, and I was just so impressed. I saw audio material. I think maybe everything but three, and I think I'm pushing that. I think I'm pushing that. But yeah, I've been up, man, checking it out. I've been sending it out, making sure everybody get to hear, your message and everything you got going on. So because we need to introduce you, and some people don't know you, go ahead and introduce yourself, sir.
One, thank you for welcoming me on your
Sir.
platform and to be around your fans and subscribers and supporters. My name is, as you said, Jeff St. James. I'm a licensed professional counselor as of now, anyway. And I work for one of the largest mental health nonprofits in the city of Philadelphia. I've been working in the field for over a decade, and just really excited to be here.
Okay, okay. Now, when you first, I heard your story, how you arrived, because you did some business at first with schooling, and then I think you transfer over to the trauma licensing, right?
As far as my career trajectory, I actually just was doing regular therapy, then went into working in prisons, then working in schools, and now doing what I'm doing over outpatient right now.
And so you said that's the largest not-for-profit that you're
In,
working for?
in Philly, yeah.
Beautiful, man. We had a program in the Oasis Center in Nashville, Tennessee. It was called the Rio program, Reaching Excellence as Leaders. So we had a 82% recidivism rate. We were doing very, very well over there. We got invited to the White House. So we had we had a good deal, man. So when I heard you say that, I was impressed, man. That's good work. Okay, so I want to get started because this could take us a while. I had a lot of questions. So I want to start off with let's talk about tell the family, tell the audience, what is a man from your perspective? What is a man?
Obviously, there's no one size fits all definition. But for mine, I think it's one in which what separates a man from a male, an adult male, is an individual who can be depended on, who is reliable, who more often than not is a man of his word and takes accountability when he's not able to live up to his word and makes mistakes. He can protect others. He can be a leader in a variety of different areas and domains, both in his personal life at home with his family, as well as with his peers. He is somebody who others can call when they need help and support. And he thinks not only short term about his immediate needs, but also long term for the needs of both himself, his family, and his community as well. I would say that functionally is a man.
Absolutely. And like you said, there are many definitions. This is not the end all, be all, cure all, guys. There are many, many more definitions. But these are some things that we've observed from our brother Jeff having his experience and his background, and me with mine. Okay, so when we have what is a man, what are the three major things that you think a woman needs to know?
All right. What are the three major things that I think women need to know? Number one, I would definitely say is sex, the importance of sex. Number two, I would say is the importance of being a good representation and reflection of a man's image. And number three, I would say probably the importance of, what would it be? Sex, his image. Oh, his voice, the importance of his voice. So with sex, I think what tends to happen, not in all relationships, but in many, women seem to understand the importance of sex all the way up until they get a ring and get married. For whatever reason, it's almost like when you go to college and then the freshman 15 kind of hits you, where you go to college. For many people who have gone, and a lot of people kind of, for whatever reason, they're not as active as they were in high school. And before you know it, they gain all this weight. And then when they come home from their first semester of school, their parents and friends are like, yo, what happened to you? That's kind of what happens often in relationships that men often find themselves in, which is the product that they were sold in the store isn't the same looking product when they get to the house. And for a lot of men, especially men who are in sexless marriages, sexless relationships, or they're just languishing in these, well, it's your birthday, so I guess it's time for a little sex. Like, like what the heck happened where a lot of times men are getting the best, most sexual versions of the women that they're in relationships with prior to her having a child, prior to her getting a ring, prior to her getting married. And I know that women know how important sex is, because when he goes to get it elsewhere, they're willing to break up the family. They're willing to end everything. They're willing to leave whole relationships, forget their whole oath and commitment over sex. But the very thing that they think is so detrimental is the very thing that they don't think is seen as integral, as a foundational piece that they need to maintain and stay on top of. Number two, what I said about his image in terms of her being an accurate or really good reflection. A lot of women don't realize that a lot of men judge other men based off the woman that's next to him, how she acts, how she conducts herself. Um, we know what type of leader you are based off of how she acts in front of other people. If she's over talking him, if she's insulting him, if she's belittling him, if she's running around and disparaging his name and his character and gossiping about her partner, we know what type of leader he isn't. So a great, I think, famous example of this, and we see it again and again, especially with like very famous Hollywood related figures, is Will Smith. For his career accolades, he should be being talked about very similarly to Denzel, and he's not. And the reason why is not because of career wise necessarily any of the action movies or roles that he's played, because he's played some phenomenal roles. The issue is the woman that he selected. And 90% of why our perception was, even prior to the slap with Chris Rock, are the reason why a lot of people don't view him and don't envy him and don't want to be him. As far as, man, we may want his money, but we don't want all the other pieces that come with his lifestyle, is because of the woman he selected. Our lack of reverence for his career and his career accolades is directly a result. And he is a multi-millionaire. He's been famous in the public eye for 30 years. Easy. And it doesn't matter, because none of us would trade places with him if that's the wife we had to end up with. Right. So one is sex. Two is being a good image bearer and reflector of his image. And then number three was his voice. Now, this one is probably the most subtle one that I think a lot of ladies don't realize the various ways in which they can struggle with this. When you decide to pick a man as your leader, and you say he is going to be the head of the household, or he's going to be my leader, and I'm going to follow his leadership, that's all good in theory. That's all good when you say it, but you have to functionally think about what that means in practice. When he says, this is what the budget is, we can't do this, or I think we should move there, or I think we need to approach things this way. And you're constantly looking at your friends, looking to hear the voices of social media, your family, what's trending, and then constraining and putting pressure on him to conform to all the outside noise and voices and perspectives of, well, so-and-so got this type of ring, and so-and-so goes on trips off that, like, what you're effectively doing is communicating to him that his voice is not as high as the other voices that you're trying to get him to compromise on. So his voice, sex, and his image, and particularly her actions and her presentation, are all key things that I think if women were much more made aware of and prioritized, I think our relationships would be more harmonious.
I'll tell you through my research, one that's huge. I talk about the sex piece and how that's a biological thing for us. It's not an option. So if you're going to be a wife and you want to get married, that's going to have to be pretty much at the forefront of something that you need to be well versed at, and making sure you're taking care of that when it comes to your husband, you know, because there's no substitution for that, because you don't want a substitution for that if you're the wife.
Yeah. The when you think about it, I think often, especially from like a therapy lens, a lot of times when I'm trying to communicate to both sexes about how to better help them understand what the other sex is needing and how important a particular need is, for many men, the equivalent for sex for us on the side for women would be her emotional intimacy and connection.
Okay.
Will a woman feel satisfied in a relationship where she feels that she's not getting any emotional, intimate connection with her partner? Absolutely not. She sees it as an essential and foundational component in order for her to feel connected to her partner. As important as communication and intimacy and emotional connection is, that's functionally what it is for us in regards to men with sex. And when you don't get that emotional connection, you feel like you two are just roommates. That's kind of what it's like for a guy who's not getting sex with a woman he's in a monogamous relationship with for long term. You were functionally roommates where I have to pay for things randomly and do certain hobbies and responsibilities and tasks. But outside of that, like, what am I here for? So if women started to view the importance of what they think is number one or two for them, that's functionally what it is for us as men.
But if it's all about me, it doesn't matter what you think and how you feel. If the woman is in that mindset, the problem when you said the marriage and sometimes they cut off the sex after marriage. The problem is not getting what you want; it's usually wanting it after you get it. So a lot of things that we go after, once we obtain it or we get that item, that person, that thing, or go to that place, then it becomes less valuable to us. So I see that. So been in the barbershop. Right behind me is the Clipperdome barbershop. Having those guys come in there for 30 years and hearing the same repetitious story, you would swear they were making it up. They do not know each other. I've done this in different states around the country, and it is the same pattern. And it is, I don't know how we can convey that thought. It's tough. It's tough. I'll move on to the next question because I can stay on that one for a while. Do you think that does feeling in a feel good right now society hurt or help the community as a whole?
I think it's hurt us overall, generally speaking, because it's caused us to be more me-centered versus we-centered. It's pushed us to a place and point where whether it's breaking up families and households, whether it's just immediate gratification, the refusal to think long term, all of it is centered around hedonism, and it's about ourselves and what we get out of something. And it, when you have too many people who's being socialized to only think as an individual and only think about themselves, and at least one side being taught and told the most important thing is your happiness, and if you don't have it, you're okay with leaving, no matter what commitments you've made. You've created a environment of extremely selfish, solipsistic individuals who at times
you froze up, brother. It's freezing. It could be on my end. Can you hear me? It locked up on us. Hold on, family. Hold on 1 second. Let's see if we can get this thing squared away. Hold on 1 second. I'm good on my end, Brother Jeff. If you can hear me, it's good on my end. If you can hear me. Okay, so I'm gonna let Jeff see if he can hash it out if that's on his side. So you guys say you can hear me. You can hear me in the chat. You can hear me at the Clipperdome Chronicles. Can you hear me, Rita? Can you hear me? We have a freeze. I think Brother Jeff, he gonna handle that. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll just continue. He jumped out. He's gonna come back, y'all. So what I asked him a question. I said, does living in a feel good right now society help or hurt our community as a whole? And I would say absolutely, positively, it does hurt our community. The reason it's hurting our community is because everybody's trying to feel good right now. They're chasing a feeling, but a lot of times we have to become uncomfortable before we can become comfortable. So when we living in this feel good right now society, we're looking for other people to stimulate that happiness or that feeling for us instead of going within ourselves and finding that peace, then make ourselves happy first. Here we go. I think he's coming back in, family. Hold on 1 second. Coming back. Ah, here we go. Hold on 1 second. All right, there we go. There you go. Okay, go ahead. So, yeah. Okay, yes, sir.
Yeah, my bad.
So I wish we're running back. So, does living in a feel good right now society, does that help or hurt the community as a whole?
Yeah, I just think unfortunately it's hurt us dramatically. I think we have the lowest marital rate, the highest divorce rate, the highest single mother household rate. It's just created an environment where everyone functionally is in it for themselves, and everyone's trying to get and take as much as they can, but they're also trying to give as little as possible or risk as little as possible. So we've created an environment of very selfish, solipsistic people who can't functionally think beyond their own needs and gratification. But the end result being that hedonism is central, and half the population is being taught that their most important value is their own happiness, not their children, not family, not oath, not commitments or marriage, their own happiness. So unfortunately, I think it's been destroying us in the process.
Okay, we can go to the next one.
Mm-hmm.
How obtainable is the ideal man that most women desire? That top 10%, that top 20%.
For the average woman, almost impossible. But
can I hold you up right there? Can you give me a two-parter to that? Because you said for the average woman, and then let's go to the above average woman. I like that, how you did that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so for very, very beautiful women, they will have access. They'll be around many of the men that we're talking about. But based on when they access these men, how they choose to allow these men to access them, and what they do during that time will impact their ability short and long term to be able to actually retain those men. So what happens is a lot of these women, whether they're average looking or really, really beautiful, many of them are doing the same thing. They're just having sex with these men. They're going out on dates. They're not maintaining and developing long-term commitment out of these guys. And then before you know it, if things don't work out with him, they're now comparing all other average men to these men that are the top tier economically in looks and in height and all the other factors. And the problem is they don't believe that the men that are actually at their level are actually at their level. They see them as beneath them.
That's right.
So they would rather go long, lengthy periods of time. Like I basically use this quote that I say quite often, that a lot of women would rather be the king's concubine than a peasant's wife.
I've heard you say that before.
Right. So when they functionally date that way through their 20s and potentially early to mid 30s, when they're realizing, I'm not sure if that's right for me, it's time for me to settle down, they're having to come to grips with the fact that they wasted a large percentage of their time.
Absolutely.
And now they're having to quote unquote settle, when in reality, they're at an age and point in terms of fertility options, in terms of physical fitness, in terms of age, in terms of energy. They are now at a point where the men that they're actually settling for are actually at their level. They just don't see it that way because of their past experiences with the men that were quote unquote top 10, top 1%.
Yeah, so it's just like you said on another show before, you said a woman is born with her value.
Yep.
She's born with it, and she does nothing to obtain it. And then as she gets older, it depreciates. Yeah. And then with us, we're born with no value, and we have to earn it. And usually the older we get, the more resources, the more tools, education, and the better the job, then we become more valuable. So then it kind of pendulum switches, balances out. It's just a balance.
Facts.
Knowledge versus experience in relationships. Which one could possibly hold more weight when they both are paramount?
This is a tough one because I think that it matters in regards to where people are in their life. I don't think men, when they're older but lack experience, that usually hurts you. Because if you spent your whole 20s and early 30s getting all the money, but you have no experience when it comes to women, when you finally start getting that attention, you're not going to know what to recognize, who to run from, who to avoid, and who to actually pour into. You're just excited about the attention. So men having some experience can be very, very helpful in terms of being able to kind of know when women are in it for the wrong reasons, and what reasons other than love and just loyalty they're actually trying. What is it that they're trying to extract from me and get access to me? So that's where they may have the knowledge of certain things, but without the actual experience of recognizing the women how they carry themselves, how they present themselves, the type of questions and things that they ask and bring up very early. If you don't have that experience, that's going to come back to bite you. And being older and having more money isn't going to save you. On the flip side, women gaining experience from men that is negative usually is very harmful and hurtful in the short and long term. And oftentimes it can impact their ability, especially sexually, to be able to pair bond with the man that they actually want.
Absolutely.
Right. And then number two, in terms of experiences, uh, well, we can look at the sexual liberation movement and what's happened since feminism has come about in the West, and ask the very obvious question: has women gaining all of these sexual partners and experiences and trying to be and match men, or potentially match the worst men that they claim, what's the outcomes led to? Has all this additional experience, going further than your mothers or grandmothers did, how has that worked out for you generationally? Are you all in the ideal relationship situations that you want? Is everybody that wants to be married or has possible legitimate suitors? Or is a large segment of y'all talking about how horrible the dating market is, and ain't none of y'all virgins, ain't none of y'all only been with one person? The reality is like, it doesn't seem like a lot of experience for women is leading to the outcomes that they want. I know a lot of times that we want to do the whole men and women are equal, they can do the same thing. Yeah, you're welcome to, and these are the results that you've
The
gotten with trying to
consequences.
be
Absolutely.
and match men.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, they wanted it again. They want the freedoms, but they don't want the responsibility. So with those freedoms come responsibility. If you're sleeping with a lot of men, like you said, back to the pair bonding, that's going to be a problem. She's biologically not wired to sleep with multi men and then be healthy in a relationship with another man.
Yeah, I'm sure that there's exceptions to the rule.
Oh, for sure.
Right, but the exceptions don't erase what happens in general. And typically the women who rack up the very, very high numbers, usually something's wrong. She's working in a sex trade, or she's gone through some significant trauma. The man who goes through a lot of women, he could be hurting, or he could be very good looking and funny and charismatic. And that's why he he did that, right? So his issues later on when doing that can be his inability to control his lust, his inability to control his sexual habits, his inability to rightly not be led by his carnal nature when he has to make really important decisions about family, about life, about his legacy, about his brand and his money. So there are costs that comes with said experience, but no experience for a man is almost extremely harmful and limited to no experience from a woman, but the knowledge coming from a person, an older mentor or man, father, uncle, grandfather, older male mentor, his experience and his knowledge can be sufficient to prevent her from experiencing a lot of unnecessary harm and damage.
Okay, that question was loaded on purpose, right? And you know that we discussed. So when you have that knowledge versus experiences, I'll give you the analogy of a doctor. They study and they go to medical school. They take the theoretical process, but then they have to go and do their residency. That is the experience. That's the practical application. A man with one or the other is very dangerous, especially in the older age, because now he has more resources. And then it's harder to recover in your 50s and 60s than it is in your 20s and 30s. So if you get into a bad marriage or a bad relationship and she runs you over those coals and take you down through there, you're gonna come up broke. And then that's a real bad day, sir.
Yeah.
Okay. We're going to do our sisters today give up their feminine power for worldly possessions.
Yeah. And this is probably one of the more difficult things with me entering into this space, and even just experiences with talking with women, some women, and that they've been trained and indoctrinated to see femininity as a weakness, to see softness and femininity, and wanting to know what men like in doing it is now oppressive. It's like they've been taught that all the things that would make a man you want happy and establishing harmony is the one thing, is all the things you're not supposed to do as a woman who's empowered, who's independent, who has freedom. So with the end result being that women who are stay-at-home moms are now seen at the bottom of the totem pole. Women who have careers where it's keeping them out of their home for 40 hours a week is now seen as the ideal. The women who are stay-at-home moms who are raising their kids or even homeschooling is seen like, what are you doing with your life? and the women who are outsourcing people taking care of their kids and sending them to daycare, that's seen as the honorable thing. So unfortunately, we've women are allowed to do both, but it seems like there is a push amongst feminists and the academic crowd circles to kind of idealize the women who are doing all the things that makes it harder for them to show up as a wife, to show up as a mother, to show up as a supportive partner. That's the ideal. And all the things that would make it easier for you to do that, that's being shunned and shamed. And really, it's amongst women. There's very, very, very few men that are shaming women that want to stay home and be a stay-at-home wife and mother.
Not at all.
Right. So, and so, yeah. So unfortunately, it seems like that's been the push.
I see they get the big houses, the big cars, they have the education. But again, there's going to be a balance or a trade-off. You're going to be responsible for that freedom to make those choices, and now here come the consequences. I think you made this video very recently, said in the winter is coming, and that's it's rough, man. And they have to understand there's some long-term problems coming with those short-term decisions, so they got to be real careful with that stuff, man. So we have a worldwide population shortage. It's not just America, it's not just Europe, it's not just Africa, it's not just Asia, it's worldwide. These are the decisions that is sweeping the world, and now we're running away from the natural biological things for personal satisfaction. Okay, but it's hurting our families, the community, and the world at large. It's a rough piece, man. Okay, so let's see. Are we living above correction in society today? Are we living above correction?
In some ways, I think we are. I think we, in general, both men and women, tend to have our own versions of what it means to run from correction and run and avoid accountability. So with women, which seems to be the popular talking point right now, is that it seems to be very obvious that a lot of people are bringing up the fact that a lot of women, in regards to relationships with men, tend to struggle to apologize, tend to struggle to take ownership and accountability for when they've done or said something wrong to said partner. That's a real thing. And then on the more social or societal level, when you're pointing out things that you're seeing women doing or saying, or how they're behaving out in public, on stages, in public, in other countries, it seems like there's this really, really big push to not say anything that is a critique in terms of anything that women are doing that's problematic and hurting our image as a community. On the flip side, with men, one of the ways in which I think we can run from correction and we can run from accountability is you don't rack up a high body count by being a good guy.
Right. No, absolutely not.
And you don't get to do that and then complain about how horrible the dating market is and say it's because of the women if you were participating in it. Right. So I'm going to use him as an example, not because I hate him or I don't respect him or his academic prowess or his intellectual or excellent oratory skills. Dr. Umar is an interesting example of someone who will go out of his way to kind of point at particular individuals and will say at times, this person needs lashes and this person's a traitor. And he's quick, man, to kind of, want to point the accountability at everybody else. But when you say that the man who's married to a non-black woman it hates, it doesn't respect black women and doesn't love his mother, and he doesn't value his blackness anymore and all this other stuff. And it's like you're treating and talking about to hold these men accountable for the decisions and choices that they're making with their money and their resources. And simultaneously, over time, we've learned about the children you've had with women that you've never married and you're not in relationships with, and potentially you didn't even raise. You're like, if you were holding yourself as accountable as you are trying to attempt to hold other men and other black people accountable, perhaps you wouldn't have put yourself in some of the situations that you did. We've all made mistakes, including myself. I've already covered it on my content.
Yes, we all have.
Yeah, right. So holding ourselves accountable is not running and pointing out all the things that only women are doing wrong, or only the men that's not dating or having sex the way you would like, that's who we're going to hold accountable. It's also about holding yourself accountable and acknowledging the ways in which you've personally failed. When we get behind these microphones, when we are being seen as thought leaders, when we're being seen as people that are highly influential in society, it would behoove you to actually lead the way and pointing out your own inadequacies and flaws and things that your shortcomings and how you've grown from it. Because that's actual accountability. It isn't doing so many of the things that we say is broken in the Black community: single mother households, not being with or married to the women who were getting pregnant, and then holding everybody else accountable. Accountability starts with self. So, that's something where I think both men and women need to improve on, especially in our community. And I hope that by me kind of, starting things a little bit differently in terms of how I'm approaching entering into this space, I hope that others will kind of see that this is an attempt to get us to, what, I got to grow as a man. I got to get better. I have to be a better partner. I got to be a better father. I got to be a better husband, you name it. And knowing that if people like me, who may have a decent degree and make good money, can acknowledge all my faults and say I'm still trying to be a better man, I think the people who I'm now talking to will receive it better when I point out something that perhaps they're doing as well. But when I kind of present myself as this pristine guy and nobody knows my stuff, it gives this false illusion that I'm something that I'm not. So, I hope that by me and you and other people who's lived life and is acknowledging that, we all have work to do and being honest about where we are in their journey, I think there will be a segment of people, men and women, that will be open to legitimately growing.
I want to, we talked, right, a couple of times, and I just want people to know, talking to this brother, he is like myself. At the Clipperdome Chronicles, we compliment, we don't compete. I don't come here to compete. I have research, documented information for 15 years, brothers and sisters. I'm not arguing with you. This brother and myself, we come here, we trying to help. We are not here to disregard, to deceive, disrespect, downgrade, or take anything from any group, organization, people, or community. We just here to try to put this word out here, and just call us. You could get email to brother. You can email me. Sometimes if you have those questions, before you make past that judgment, pick up the phone or just reach out, and then you can have a conversation, because we can compliment. We don't have to compete. Yeah. We don't have to. Okay. Yeah. Give us some insight on why you think men aren't approaching women today.
Because most women are unapproachable. I know that.
Hold on, Jeff. Let that land. Wait, you just got to let that land.
It's like asking if men like women anymore. Yeah, the ones that still likable. Are all y'all not likable? All y'all are not approachable. That's obvious. And when they say, "Well, what are we doing or saying that's making us unapproachable?" Is this something that we really got to put out there? You take screenshots to try to shame men that you don't like, or you try to humiliate the men that things don't work out with. So you don't defend the men that are falsely accused. You believe all women, which means by default all men are guilty. You don't want men approaching you at the gym. You give nasty stares and looks at men when in the club when they're trying to approach you. We obviously can't talk or deal with y'all in the workplace. What did you think was going to happen? You've shamed and demonized the very thing that you're now realizing that was necessary in order for y'all to actually link with men, because y'all wasn't approaching men in mass. It was always the men's responsibility. So yeah, you've functionally listened to, again, the same people that want to destabilize the nuclear family, the same people who don't see the intrinsic value of men or masculinity or male leadership, the same people who told you you're good all by yourself. Yeah, you listen to that group and you've been indoctrinated enough to where you've dressed, done, acted, and said all the things that would lead to men not wanting to pursue you. Yeah, that's how it happens. Most of you are unapproachable now. Now you can fix it. But I best believe, as of right now, yeah, like that's all when my wife would ask me when I mentioned in all these podcasts about back in when we first started talking and meeting and dating, and when she's asked me about this whole podcast bro thing, I'm telling her right now, if me and her hadn't worked out, I might have had a woman in Guatemala.
Mm.
You hear me? I would have had a woman in South Africa, easily, easily. And I don't think, like we said in the previous question, you've been tricked into thinking that your femininity and your softness and your willingness to work with a man is now a weakness. And it's not. It's actually a major strength, especially in an environment where most women around you are being taught to do and be the exact opposite.
It's a superpower.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
it's literally a superpower.
No doubt. If you want to see a man succumb to kryptonite, give him a beautiful feminine woman with that soft touch and that soft voice.
Yeah.
It's a wrap.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Okay. Do you think that women understand that being chosen for sex usually doesn't transfer into marriage?
They do, right around the time when they get close to the wall, when they start getting close to that time where they can't have more children, when they get right to that time where all their options are men that they don't want, then they get it. They often don't get it when they're younger and they think that they still have the time. I'm not of the impression that women as they get older become self-deluded and aren't actually aware that this is happening. That they're becoming more and more aware that a lot of the men that's pursuing them are not the men that they want and aren't legitimate options, and they can't actually lock down the men that they want. I actually think they're very, very much aware of it. I think the public persona of what they have to present before other women to explain the life and decisions that they've made that's led them to that point is, I'm happy. All the women that's single are the happiest. I'm traveling. I'm outside. I'm buying stuff. There are legitimately some people, men and women, who are genuinely good with being single and on their own. I don't think it's most of them. I do not think it's most of the women who are single in their mid to late 30s, 40s, and 50s who are happy being by themselves. I actually don't. And the way in which they cope with it is often on companionship, situationships, the partner that comes through on the weekends. Like, that's fine and all. That's your choice. But no, I don't think most of them, when they're younger and in their 20s, are fully aware that all these quote unquote options are not the options that I think that they just enamored and are happy to get the attention. It's seen as currency for a lot of them in the dating market. And then over time, the likes, the DMs, the comments don't really translate into long-term happiness, because at best you're getting money and some guy to sleep around with every now and then, but you're watching people establishing and building lives, families, legacies, and you have the guys in your DM.
I'll say to the sisters, I will say this piece. You'll get the 5 houses, you get the 5 European cars, you'll stack up the bank account. But if you don't have the children and you don't have the husband, what is the purpose of the work? Leave it to who for what? The purpose of acquiring those things is so that the next generation or your legacy could benefit from your hard work, and then they can surpass you and do as well or better. That's really the purpose.
Yeah, in my previous podcast appearance with Trev, there was a point that I kind of made about, if there was ever a time to recognize the importance of us needing each other, a great time to have realized that was during this most recent election cycle in the months following after. If the largest demographic of individuals that lost their jobs from November all the way till now was Black women, and they are often seen as the largest group, that's the loudest group, that's stating about their lack of need for their men. If there was, with AI coming, with jobs getting harder and harder to find, the cost of living, being what it is, and a whole lot of y'all losing jobs and therefore losing homes and foreclosures and repossessions, this is probably a really great time for introspection. Not for people to kind of be like, we told you so, but just to realize how precarious we both are. in an environment and system that's not super friendly to either of us. Perhaps now when a political party or person that you don't like is in and policies have been put into place, and the thing that you thought you had in terms of job security, the government, all this other stuff to justify why you were saying you don't need us, when that was snatched away from a lot of y'all, now you're having to look on the other side and realize, oh, it turns out two incomes typically is better than one.
Oh, absolutely.
Having a man who I can depend on when stuff like this happens is potentially great and helpful. Yeah, it turns why do hundreds of thousands of you have to lose your job with the government in order for y'all to have realized that you weren't married to the government to begin with? So I think this is a season of introspection and reflection. I think women potentially can use these experiences to realize and reevaluate the value of men and masculinity again in their lives on an individual and collective level. And I think that for men, what I'm attempting to do is get men to reevaluate how it is that we need to communicate our needs to our women. I think we've done a horrible, horrible job as men, especially behind microphones, being able to connect with our women in such a way in which they can hear us, they can receive us, and they can listen. I think that because of our disappointment, our past mistakes, because of the state of what's happened to the Black community, I think a lot of hurt individuals are the ones who are leading the charge and saying all that's wrong. And when you're only speaking out of pain and brokenness, you're not going to point people to healing and restoration.
No doubt. Okay. We're going to move on to our next question. Please explain. We are biologically wired to be visual as men.
Mm-hmm.
Why is physique paramount for men when it comes to women? Why is that paramount? Help the sisters understand.
Yeah. It's kind of similar to the first question or the early questions early on about the drop off in sex. I think that we lose sight. Of course, there's aging with time. You know, things will be different, of course. But the idea that you'll typically look your best when he first interacts with you, and after the relationship ends and you rebound and then you get yourself right, there seems to be some issue with the in between from when he first met you and y'all got together and potentially got married to when you don't no longer want the relationship and now you're gone and now you're going back on the street and now you're in the gym every day. There seems to be some disconnect. And what I'm trying to explain to ladies in this instance is I want you to do the reverse. Instead of waiting until the relationship is ending and you're going back out in the market and now you're trying to be your fittest, best looking feminine self, why not try to do that to retain the man that you said yes to, that you said you wanted, that you agreed to be in a relationship with? Why wait to offer that to a man in the future that may never come when you have one right in front of you that you chose? It is important to realize that the more that the man that you are with or want, other women want, the higher of expectations you better raise for yourself. Stop getting with men, period, let alone men that all other women want, and then think you can be the worst, sloppiest version of yourself. You don't show up to work in pajamas, right? You don't show up to your parent teacher conference in a bra with your hair looking crazy. Well, some people do, but you get my point, right?
Yeah,
right? So why is it that when it comes to your male counterpart, your husband, your the man that you are supposedly proud to be around, remember what I said before, you are a representation of his image, and you impact how people see him. Men have gotten business offers and been invited into spaces and places because the woman that was next to him looked a certain way, acted a certain way, behaved a certain way, and got along with the woman who was connected to the man who could offer it.
And also lost jobs and contracts because of the woman. Absolutely.
Yes, opportunities are lost and gained. You can add to the wealth of your household just by striving to be a better version of yourself. You really can. And you can also take it away. So, I hope that this is an encouragement that if he hasn't left yet, that means you still got time.
I'm going to jump into this one. I told you when we spoke last, I said, we have to do this piece.
Okay.
We have to talk about your background in trauma, you specializing in trauma. How does that affect the family? What does that look like in general? Talk to the family about how that impacts us, that trauma piece in the family, unresolved issues.
Yeah. So trauma, to start with, it could be like a very deeply or disturbing event that can occur. It could be it can impact you so deeply that it can cause like severe physical or psychological injury. It could be just something that's very disruptive and impact you in terms of your views of safety and security. But the reason why I lean so heavily on focusing on trauma, especially with the work that I do, is about how it can impact us relationally with others. Number one, distrust, avoidance, high anxiety, the need for control. These are all things that we'll start to adopt and kind of influence our lens of how we see ourselves and others. The person that goes through significant sexual trauma, what may have they'll usually go to one or two extremes if it's not resolved or they're not able to heal from it. The one extreme is that they now avoid most anything relating to sex. They always get triggered. They can't allow somebody to get that close to them, with the result being it's going to be very problematic when you're trying to do life with somebody who naturally and normally wants access to sex. And then if you're reacting and responding when they touch you as if it was from that night when something horrible happened to you, what do you think that's communicating to the person who's seeing this as natural? And now every time I touch you, they're thinking about the image in your head of when you were violated. Right. But if you reverse it to the other extreme, hypersexuality.
Yes.
Right. Where for many of them, this is one of the few places where they actually feel like they can now have control. They can dictate who, how often, when, and with whom that they can do it with. So now they're gaining a sense of control. It's a maladaptive strategy, but now they're gaining control in the area that was stripped and taken from them when they at an earlier point in their life. It can impact your ability to be faithful. It can impact your ability to trust. It can impact your ability to be vulnerable and close. I'll even say this because many clinicians won't say it. Many of the people who were violated when they were younger by people of a certain sex will then switch to date and do life with the other sex that didn't violate them. So as an example, what I'm basically saying is when a young woman gets violated, it's not uncommon by a male. It is not uncommon for her when she gets older to only date women. Right? Young boys who can get violated, they can go in either direction. He gets violated by a male, and now we'll never know whether or not he would have gone in that lifestyle and been gay. And now he happens to be gay. Or on the flip side, he was violated as a young child by a woman or a female family member, and now he doesn't know what to do in terms of exploration with his sexuality. This happens, and it's very interesting to see the rates of people who, for very long stretches of their life, have not been heterosexual, and then you ask many of them, "Did anything sexual ever happen to you?" Crazy high. Yeah. So, and again, it's just not uncommon. It is not uncommon. It's not always. It's not. I won't even say it's predictive, but I wouldn't argue against it being an increased chance that the way in which they try to express their sexuality usually is related to the trauma that they previously experienced when they were younger.
That childhood trauma, a lot of that stems from that. When you talk to people, not sure you do, and they were sexually, assaulted when they were young. When they grow up, it's going to have a tremendous effect on it. Do you know kind of like some statistics on how often that happens?
No,
that they don't make it through because
No, it's so we can, there's definitely different studies and stuff in terms of like evidence-based models and how effective they are with certain populations. They'll measure, especially for like veterans versus veterans or combatants. But in terms of like the LGBTQ, the best way I can say is I think that there's an agenda in place to make sure that that study isn't really done on a meta analysis level. I don't know that the people who push for certain agendas in society would want us to do a study on the LGBTQ population specifically, and then inquire if they've experienced any sexual trauma in their past as children and or young adults. I don't know. I don't think that the people. I don't think certain groups would be very happy for that to be a formalized study that gets a lot of traction.
I can see that. I can definitely see that. What percentage of women have dated a healthy, functional, productive man, in your opinion?
Oh yeah, this is completely just an opinion and it's anecdotal for me. I probably like 15-20%.
There you go.
Yeah, I think it's very low.
My research is right there.
Yeah, I think it's very low. And I just think that there's too much unhappiness. There's too much disruption. There's too much cultural breakdown to say that all of them have been with and experienced really good men in terms of actual relationship. Now, if you were to ask how many of them have met a good man, seen a good man, come across a good man, even been approached by a good man, I would say almost all of them.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah.
Yep, I can go with that one. They've got 20. If men and women took a test on understanding the opposite sex, what do you think the outcome would be and why?
Most women would get an F. And maybe 30% of men would get A's and B's, and the rest of the men would probably get anywhere between D or F. And the reason for that, and the reason why I broke it down that way, is because for the 15 to 20% of men, and I'm being generous with that actually do very well with women, they have to know a lot about women in order to get that far with women. They have to know what they like. They have to know what they're turned on by, what they're turned off by. They have to know what will get them sexually aroused. They have to know the way in which he carries himself that can impact his ability to have children with them. There is a percentage of men, not very high, that actually knows women very well. That I would argue they may even know women better than women know themselves. On the flip side, because you're not the approacher, you're the one that's being approached. Because you're not the one that's courting, you're the one being courted. You don't, as a woman, have to know much at all in order to interact with men. And I think a lot of women are hearing this jarring stuff that's coming from me and other men like you, that when we're saying things about men's perspectives and men's desires and men's standards and boundaries, they're like, standards, boundaries. What do you mean? They never, many of them never even thought about the idea that men could have wants that they don't measure up to. They've never heard of the idea of men settling. The idea that a man would settle, what? He should be lucky to be with me. Like many of them don't understand that men having their equivalent of what they like and want and desire in women isn't instantly sexist. It's just each sex has their own set of hierarchy of needs and desires. They don't understand and realize that men have their own version of that. So I think a huge percentage of women that's why I think Kevin Samuels got so much of the blowback that he did, because for the first time in a public format, in a really large way, a lot of women were learning that the man that they want not only doesn't want them, but that many of the things that they've done and the lifestyles they've lived are problematic and are actually probably an accurate explanation for why they've gotten the outcomes that they have. It's because they didn't actually know men. They knew men sexually. They didn't know anything else about men at all. They didn't know that men were putting women in two different buckets: recreational use and actual long-term committed relationship. They did not know that. They usually take a long period of time to realize that a lot of the things that you champion, a lot of the things that you're getting behind, a lot of the things that you're defending, and a lot of the things that you won't shame, won't criticize, and will even support if your girlfriend or some homegirl you know is doing it, are the very things that men just detest, dislike, are turned off by. They just think that men just need to conform to them. So I do think that a large percentage of women actually don't understand men, and that includes many of them that are in relationships and married. And then there's the percentage of men who either are in relationship with women or are not, and want to be and can't be. A lot of men are unhappy in their actual relationships or their lack of relationships because they don't understand and know nearly as much as they should to put them in a better ideal position relationally with women. So I think 10, 15, max 20% of men really, really know what's going on with women. A very small percentage of women get it, and everybody else is getting D's and F's.
We know it's a woman's prerogative to change her mind. So when she says what she wants, that can change. And sometimes if they don't really know what they want for themselves, of course, that's going to be definitely confusing for a man to be able to come up to the woman and get some kind of cohesiveness in that relationship. It's going to be rough. It's a rough piece.
Yeah.
Okay. In your experience, how long does it take people to grasp the majority of the things that you say? The majority, not the small specifics.
I will separate it by both age and gender. I think millennial and Gen Z and men slightly older than that group are probably the quickest to understand and get what I'm saying. But I do acknowledge that who they're surrounded by, who they're influenced by, and how they vote politically probably impacts how true that statement is. I think right now, a lot of men that tend to be more independent thinkers, that tend to be more conservative thinkers, more traditional in their views and approaches about relationships and men and women. I think what I'm saying is plain as it makes logical sense to them. I don't think they're struggling with anything I'm saying at all. I think they're like, yeah, that's exactly what's going on. That explains why everything's falling apart. Like it makes sense. I think this isn't hard for them at all. I do think that men that are more effeminate, men that are more liberal, men that have a view of women's voices and perspectives that seems to orbit around that and not and seeing almost they have like a centralized view where like the center of their perspective is rooted in how the women around them think and feel. They're going to struggle with the stuff that I'm saying. Right now with women, I think women that are in very happy and secure relationships are not upset with me at all.
Most times not.
I've gotten messages, I've gotten feedback, and almost always it's the women who are in relationships or their husbands or boyfriends felt safe enough to send it to them. These women weren't that upset at all. In fact, they were thanking me and saying, "Wow, I'm learning things about myself and my partner, and my husband or boyfriend that I really didn't realize in the ways I wasn't showing up." It seems to be the women that are single and don't want to be, and women who are in relationships with men that most other men don't want to trade places with him. Those are the people where he's less likely to be viewed as a leader, where she seems to be the one that's running the show and running the politics of the home and what our opinion is on said thing. They're the ones that seem to be the ones that are struggling the most with the words that's coming out of my mouth. And when I was on Crimson Cure, I made it very, very clear. It's not that I don't value women's voices, views, perspectives, and opinions. I'm identifying the fact that in the Black community, in mass, we've done the reverse. We no longer value men's views, perspectives at all, men's leadership at all. And as a result, the leadership primarily led from the matriarchy has led us to the conditions that we are in now. So the only two alternatives to me is a more balanced view that acknowledges the needs, views, and perspectives of both parties or male leadership. The outcome of where we're at now is because of female leadership. That I am willing to say and stand on in the Black community.
Absolutely.
So the ones that struggle the most with receiving my message and a lot of the things that I'm saying are the one that lean the most feminist and matriarchal in nature. They center feminine views, perspectives, leadership in any and all things, and men speaking up on things that's a critique, that is feedback that is constructive, or stating that they are leading us to demise. They're the ones that cannot really tolerate a lot of the things that I'm saying.
So I do relationship forums and I do my men's meetings every Thursday. We take down those statistics. We trying to get this research. We want to apply this. A lot of times we're doing things subconsciously that we don't even understand that we're doing.
Yeah,
it's playing out in front. Other people can see us, and we're going to say that we're not doing these things. So I get a chance to sit back and see people write something down, and then when they leave and come back, they're doing something different. So that's why that research is an integral part for me, and it really helps me talk to people to the question of how long does it take people to get it. I've had people come back 10 years later, pick up the phone, and they go right back to that day or that time when we had that conversation, and I forgot about it, and that happens so often. But I want to thank my wife and daughter. Okay, they see people in crisis come to our house. These are mature men, grown men, 1, 2, 3 jobs with grandchildren, entrepreneurs, all walks of life. They knock on the door, and one could be in a situation where he may want to take his life. And I appreciate them for riding with me and allowing me to have that space for them to come to, because this is not a joke. I had my men's meetings where I was going to start to tape them about 6 years ago. And the 2 times I was going to tape it, 2 people talked about, taking themselves out. Yeah. And so that let me know how serious this was. So I have a lot of information, but I'm not able to tape it because it's such an intimate, situation for them brothers to sit up there and unpack that. And then they can only give so much in that space with the men, so it's good that they can come to the house. And I want to thank my wife and daughter, man, because they ride with me, man. And it's rough. I know it's rough.
Listen, man, you got 2 good ones. And I want to thank you. I want to thank you for doing the work that's unseen. Exactly. Up until about 3 weeks ago, none of y'all knew I existed.
Right.
And I've been working and trying to do this in my own small way. And my goal is honestly to normalize that there are men who actually care, who have gone through these things, including myself personally on the mental health front, disappointment with relationships, declines in my mental health. I've gone through the gambit of I've gone through trauma as well. Like I've seen death in front of my eyes. I've seen violence on the street level right in front of me. My clients, some of the stories. If I was to spend an episode and talk about the trauma stories alone, I think a lot of you just hearing it from me vicariously through me, I think a lot of y'all would have a tough time going to sleep that night. So there are people that's putting in the work. A lot of it doesn't make it in the public domain.
Right.
And now I'm trying to be one of the ones that's trying to normalize that men need to get better. We need to feel better. We need to look out for each other, and we need to normalize not just working on our own to improve, but actually connecting with other men that's also seeking to do the same.
No doubt. Okay, so I wanted to wrap it up with you. How about you speaking on the women in your family? So the women need to know and hear and understand that there are women in your family that you love, that you revere. Go into your story. Talk a little bit about the wife and the people, the ladies in your life.
Yeah, my wife, she's amazing. She revealed. I honestly think, whether she realized it or not, my experience with her and the challenges that we've gone through early up until now, and the growth that I've seen in myself, has revealed to me reasons for why I couldn't just in my head quit on the idea of the state of our community. She revealed to me that I can improve. She showed me the grace to give me that space to start to grow up and stop and become more and more of a man and a leader. And I saw her change for the positive. Where when we're first getting to know each other, obviously we're not aligned on everything, and we have our own different views and opinions. And as I started to move and become older and wiser and more mature in certain respects, she was also learning what it would take for her to be a adequate and suitable partner to do life with me. Like she's learned how to talk to me better. She's learned on how to love me better. She's learned to see the significance of having me in her life and not doing the exact opposite to push me away. And I'm seeing a woman who knew some of those things, but not all those things, and improved on it. And then I'm seeing my life in relation with her also improving as a man. And I'm saying, well, if I can experience that here in America in today's time, then that means that there are a lot of men and women. We ain't unique. We're normal human beings like everybody else. Then that means, what if I was to take the concept of what I'm experiencing, what I've been through, what I've experienced in this relationship, and now try to see if I can take my theoretical approach, my background, my past mistakes, and all this stuff, and kind of give it to the public as a model of things that could be potentially helpful to others. So her mom, my mom, a lot of the women in my family were just rocks. And when I was at my lowest, many of the people who stood by me, and this is why, despite my critique of the Black community and my critique of certain Black women who aren't doing what it is that I think are helpful for our community, I will never throw out the baby with the bathwater, because some of the most consistent people in my life were Black women.
Absolutely.
Period. So I've seen both sides to them. I've seen the highs and the lows. I've seen the good and the bad. And I'm saying that good is a goodness that you can't find anywhere else on this planet. And I know that it's still there. And I believe that even the most hurt, damaged, traumatized women in our community are salvageable. And I wouldn't do the work that I do or be speaking to you today if I didn't think it was.
No doubt. Okay, I want to my wife. I just want to commend her biggest piece that she brings to the table. She's willing to grow and learn from her mistake.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And that, we date, Jeff. We talked about that when you're single and your friends and your brothers and cousins, you don't get that a lot with our sisters. They're not willing to do that. That is such a valuable piece for her to be able to love me and me love her back.
Mm-hmm.
And when she does make that mistake, she can say, hey, babe, I'm sorry. What can I do? What can we do next time so that won't happen? And she'll truly humble herself so that she can come back and do a better job next time. Because now I do that all the time. Okay, so I'll try to be a better version of me, because that's just who I am. And I come up short as well. I come up short. But on our first date, Jeff, I did this thing, reciprocation. Now, understand what I did do for years is I had women with only PhDs, and we did research with that. Then we had women with only master's degrees, and then so on and so forth, blue collar and bachelor's degree. So the first date, I learned that reciprocation was hard for women at times on certain subjects. So when we were on our first date, I took $1. I had a stack, like 10 singles. Then I had $1. So I said, okay, I took the $10. That's okay. And I said, just keep talking. I said, act like I'm not giving you this money. And then she took the $10 and I ran out of money. I said, now I'm going to take this $1. I said, now I'm going to show you reciprocation. So I handed her the $1. I said, keep talking. I said, hand it back. I handed her the $1. She handed it back. So that moral to that story was that we take care of each other. If we keep, distributing that back to each other, filling each other's cup up, I don't have to keep going to get the money or the energy. Yeah. So that was the first date, man. So I really appreciate her, because that's 70% of my relationship. The fact that she wants to grow and she can say, hey, baby, I'm sorry. That's on
man. And as men, I will say that the state of the community and the state of all these men complaining that the women they're doing life with don't apologize, don't take accountability. Guess whose fault it is? Ours.
Absolutely.
Why? Because she didn't start. Many of them don't start showing that trait 3 years later. If she's the type that only sees fault in the opposite sex and it's always somebody else's fault, she's going to display and show those traits very early. How she talks about her exes, how she talks about past situations or relationships, how she frames things when she's not going to get everything right in the first 2-3 years that you know her. So when you're watching and observing her skirt, avoid accountability, don't never apologize, always spin it back on you. And if you keep progressing and this doesn't get addressed and you don't start to see any growth in that area, it's your fault for ignoring the red flags. And you're enabling her to think that that's fine in order to continue doing a relationship with you. So that was something I definitely observed as well with my wife, and that I saw somebody that was willing to grow, willing to take ownership, willing to apologize. And that I think only women who are willing to do that should be the ones that we reward with marriage and children.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We got you know, you got your mom, your grandmother, all the women that's closest to you, and it's the good, the bad, and the indifferent. You know, and they are the first teachers. Okay, even in school, most of our teachers probably were women, right? Because most educators are females. So again, we're not here to bash or degrade or take from. We just gonna give that critique, that criticism, you know, that honest love to try to put some truth on the table and get us a little bit of clarity. So okay, we can go ahead and we can wrap this up. We want y'all to take this. We want you to test this. We want you to try this. Take it to the barbershop or take it to the hair salon. Take it to the job or take it to the church. Remember, you don't have to like it, believe it, or understand it. Sometimes you just have to respect it. This is the Clipperdome Chronicles. Thank you. All right, Jeff.